Muy buenas noches y bienvenidos nuevamente a la serie internacional de Tiempo de Mercadeo. La semana pasada con David Ezequiel dejamos una pregunta en el aire. Vamos a continuar en esta oportunidad con la respuesta que nos tiene él a ese interrogante. Ya volvemos. David, good evening and welcome back.
Great to be here.
Last week you were driving a Subaru.
Well, I'm a big fan of Subaru because, again, they're just so smart in the way they approach making cause marketing a real big part of how they go to market. And the example that I was about to share when we ran out of time is that for the last 5 or so years, they have had a program called Share the Love. At the end of the year in the United States, it's very common for car manufacturers to offer big sales. They want to clear out the end of the year models.
All in the inventory.
Exactly. And it's a big time where they end up spending a lot of money by giving away sale prices, by lowering their prices. And all car marketers measure how they're doing by how many cars they sell and at what prices they get. And if you are running an effective marketing program on top of your pricing program, the goal is that you will lower the amount of money you're giving back to the consumer, that you're getting a higher price for the car. So in the case of this Share the Love program, they allowed consumers to choose from a selection of nonprofits to make a donation, to have Subaru give a donation. Anybody who bought a car during this 1-month period, Subaru would give $250 to the cause of their choice. And when they did the analysis, year after year, they have found that consumers are really excited about the program, that the dealers are really excited about the program, and that they are getting a higher price for the car than they would have at other times of the year when they're doing promotions. So it is a great example of how, done well, it can help you with your pricing. It can help you maintain good margins.
Okay, I think that with that example, we finished the first part, which is the first 3 issues, or if I may call it issues. The second one, what about the corporate? Okay, why don't we go ahead?
So we've talked about marketing initiatives.
Yes.
Now we're going to talk about corporate initiatives.
Corporate initiatives.
And these are goals that a corporation has that certainly are about their business, about the health of their business, but are not as closely tied to the sale of their products and services. And we talk about 3 different types of these initiatives. One is traditional corporate philanthropy, where many companies have a foundation or another mechanism in which they give to the communities that they serve or to issues of concern to them.
And that's what we find most often.
That is exactly right. And that is an area that has been undergoing tremendous change. Last week, I joked a little bit and talked about some of the inappropriate ways in which money is given out. Sometimes a company may be in the food business, but a chief executive or a top executive has a particular passion for marine life.
Yes.
And suddenly this company is giving philanthropic donations to something that has nothing to do with their business. As companies have come under...
And that could be for tax purposes instead of social causes or cause marketing.
Yes, it could be for a variety of motivations, but it is definitely not tied to the core needs of the company.
Yeah.
As companies have come under greater scrutiny over the years, their giving practices have as well. And so now companies are more and more under pressure and more seeing the rationale for being strategic in their giving, for supporting issues that are relevant to their business, to their consumers, to their employees, to some aspect of how they go to market. The second type of corporate initiative is socially responsible business practices. These are the ways in which you conduct your business. Now, in all countries, there are regulations more or less about what you have to do with the environment,
Right.
with how you treat your workers, with how you construct your facilities. We're not talking about just keeping up with the law. We're saying, where are you going to go above and beyond
Yes.
in order to show the values of your company and hopefully be ahead of the curve in terms of reputation and in terms of the value that folks place on your company. So this can be those same issues. Labor policy. A great example would be Nike. Nike, some years ago, one of the world's most admired and most successful companies, but some years ago, news got out about how how the workers who created their very expensive Air Jordan and other sneakers, how they were being treated in factories, perhaps some in Latin America, but certainly over in Asia. And they were slaughtered in the press, not because they were the only companies that were using contractors who were perhaps not particularly kind to their workers, but because when you're Nike, everybody is looking at you as the leader. And they have, since then, been very active in moving the whole movement of creating better working conditions around the world for workers ahead. So that would be an example of socially responsible business practices. Recycling practices. Many companies now are saying that they want to produce in a factory that has a zero waste policy.
The environment is becoming an issue all over the world.
Absolutely. Governments are more concerned about the environment, companies are more concerned about the environment, and people are more concerned about the environment. It's not always the case that because you produce your products in a greener fashion, to use the term green, that a person will go out of their way to buy. But if you are seen as being a polluter, as being the enemy in terms of the environment, people may very well go to your competition because they feel that you're an evil company.
You have some statistics that I would like you to give us at the end of the program, because once we summarize the whole thing, I would like you to give us the statistics.
Super.
Okay. Now, the third one.
The third one is workforce engagement or workforce volunteering. It's the idea of providing your employees with opportunities to give back to the community. And this takes many, many forms. Some companies do this programs where they have a global volunteerism day, where people will be given opportunities to everything from paint a school, to pick up litter, to read to children, all sorts of sort of simple things that people can feel good about doing that everybody can do. And some companies will have programs where they actually give people paid time to volunteer at charities around the world. What's really at the cutting edge now is skilled volunteerism, where if a company is an accounting firm, instead of sending out a highly trained certified public accountant to paint a fence, they will partner them with a nonprofit that needs help getting its books in order and say, we want you to be mentoring these people, advising these people, doing pro bono work in a way that the value add to the cause is tremendous, and the satisfaction of actually accomplishing something for the employee is high. And sometimes, if an employee gets really involved with a nonprofit, they may end up being on the board or meeting the other leaders of that group, and that could often result in relationships that could lead to other business. So finding ways to get your employees satisfied and engaged by doing volunteerism work is a huge trend in this area.
Let's go to another commercial break, and we'll be right back. Ok, vamos a una tanda de comerciales nuevamente y estamos con ustedes. Ya regresamos. David, again, you have more examples of this type of thing that you were talking about?
Absolutamente.
Okay, ¿cuáles?
So I wish that my Spanish was good enough to talk to your viewers through the whole program there.
It
but
is, it is.
the next time when we get
Okay.
together.
When you come to Medellin, you'll give the speech in
Oh, that
Spanish,
would be
okay?
fantastic.
Okay.
So, a terrific example of socially responsible business practices. In the United States and in a few foreign countries, there is a retailer called Whole Foods. Whole Foods is a natural, organic, healthy foods retail supermarket chain, fairly expensive supermarket chain. And its business is based on the idea that there's a certain group of consumers who are willing to pay a premium price to go to a beautiful supermarket and get the finest goods that this company has taken the time to determine are natural, good-for-you, organic type programs. One of the most controversial areas in food management has to do with seafood now. A lot of issues about the fishing and overfishing, and in some cases extinction of different types of seafood. So Whole Foods worked with some nonprofits who have been studying this issue, and they came up with categories of different types of fish, and they used a very simple set of symbols, like the semáforo, the green, yellow, red.
Yeah, red.
And red. I don't know. In Colombia, maybe it's blue. And so whenever you go to their stores now, they have the practice of labeling every type of fish there. Is it a green category of fish? That means you have nothing to worry about. This fish, the supplies of this fish and the way that they're being fished is safe and sound and appropriate. Yellow means we still sell this fish, but there are some issues that you should be aware with. And then red is,
don't buy it.
is an endangered type. And so what they have done is they're educating people to think about how they buy fish, but as a company, they're taking on this socially responsible business practice, and they have made a pledge. They have already stopped selling the red fish, and they are limiting those fish that are in the yellow category. So, and by doing this, it's an interesting interplay between a business policy and a consumer campaign, because many companies might take on a decision like this and nobody would know about it outside of the company. You would just no longer be able to find that particular fish in their stores. But because this is something that appeals to their consumers, they've turned a business policy into also a consumer marketing technique that makes them closer to their consumer.
I have a question about this money that companies are investing, because that's an investment. It's not. How do you present those figures in the balance statement?
Well, really no differently than you would other investments in administration and policy. Those programs that are using marketing funds go into the marketing budget.
Into the marketing budget.
Yeah, those that are.
But they're not considered as a promotion, investment.
Yes, no, I would say that if we're talking about socially responsible business practices, it probably falls somewhere into an administrative type budget, an executive type budget. And again, that's why we're talking about the corporate part of the decision making and the corporate part of the policy. These are more CEO level, upper level course setting investments that are in those types of corporate budgets.
From a marketing viewpoint, which do you think is best? The first part, what we talked about last week, or what we're talking about now?
I'm going to use another what we'll call another cop-out, which is It depends.
Oh, it depends. Yeah, that's a good answer in
I don't
marketing.
know. I don't know if that's right. I don't know if there's this expression. Maybe you can teach me if it exists in Spanish, but in the U.S. as an expression, if you don't know where you want to go,
You'll get
any road will take you there.
Right, absolutely.
So
yeah.
again, it's just so important to
Let
decide
me-
what you want to do.
Si usted no sabe para dónde va, cualquier camino lo lleva.
Exactamente. So the answer is all of these techniques, all of these approaches have been shown in the appropriate context to really be effective.
Yes.
And of course, you've got to line them up with where you are with your business, where you want to take it to make the most and best use of them.
David, let's go to another commercial break and we'll be right back, okay?
Okay.
Vamos a ir a otra tanda de comerciales y ya estamos con ustedes. Ya regresamos. David, I think it's about time for us to talk about statistics because you have some statistics in your book that shows what you were talking about. You know that cost marketing is really effective. Could you mention some of them?
As I think I referred to last week, there is sort of the mother of all statistics that we like to point to, which is a statistic that a survey question that asks consumers, price and quality being equal, would you be likely to switch brands if they supported a cause you believed in? And what's fascinating is over the 25 plus years that that question has been asked, how steadily the number of people have who answer affirmatively, who say, yes, I would switch, price and quality being equal. It was in the 60s, 25 years ago.
Does that I would has become I do?
It sounds like we're getting married. I do. But so that's an excellent question, and that is one of the criticisms of that question that comes up all of the time, which is
everything is would.
Yes, in the United States we would call it a motherhood and apple pie question. Everybody would. What kind of evil person? In fact, who were the 33% in the old days who had said no, I wouldn't? I don't want to meet them, but it's an excellent question, and the answer is that certainly. The numbers of people, other studies that actually are on people reporting what they have done, it's not at that level, but there are significant numbers of people who report that they have recommended something, that they have purchased something, that they have purchased more than one product of this type, that they have made a contribution based on this kind of communication. Those statistics exist. There was also another fascinating study, a behavioral study done at Duke University in conjunction with Cone Communications, in which they had a controlled environment. They had some consumers looking at a magazine. And in the magazine, they didn't know it, but there were a few ads that were different from magazine A to magazine B. And the people who looked at magazine A, some of the brands that were in that magazine, they were going to see again when they walked into a convenience store that had been set up for them to do some shopping in. Group A saw some ads that were just generic, that just talked about, this is a great product. Group B saw some ads that had a cause marketing message. And what they found was that in all categories, there was some lift among those people who had seen the cause-related ads, and depending on the category, there was more or less. In some, it was fairly negligible. In some, it was higher. The specifics of it are less important than the fact that the right offer to the right consumer at the right time in the right way will have a much bigger impact. And so one has to test. Serious marketers, if they're fortunate enough to have the time and the resources, will test any offer, whether the product should be blue or green, or whether it should be priced at $1 or $2, or whether it should be affiliated with a particular cause. We talked earlier about a Pampers program. Again, they found that if they said, we are going to support mothers in the developing world, consumers said, that's nice, but I don't know if I really believe it. If they said, when you buy a package of Pampers, we will pay for a vaccination of a specific disease for a specific person, they suddenly said, wow, I could really get behind that. So it is a matter of truly figuring out what you're doing, trying to test, and coming up with the best offering.
Yeah, that's something I always ask myself. Why do researchers always show goods instead of really what people do? That's something I don't really understand.
There's another, there's another expression, lies, lies, and damn statistics, which is to say, we would like to think that we are able to really understand and be able to then predict how people will act based on market research. And certainly there is some really powerful market research out there. But there's so much noise in the equation. If people ask me how I really behave, I could think that I was answering honestly, but most of us believe that we are far less influenced by marketing than we really are. So there's a lot of inappropriately reported information. And also, I mean, do you remember all the things that you've purchased in the last month?
Yeah.
It's an interest, I mean, you're more of a marketing research specialist than I, but they often ask those questions also because they're talking about things that they're trying to project going forward and they don't quite know what's happened. I don't know if you've read, and I'd recommend to any of your viewers, has nothing to do with cause marketing, but the Walter Isaacson biography of Steve Jobs.
Oh, yeah.
And he's an example of a guy who said, we don't do any market research because people don't know. And we are inventing a whole new set of products. And until they get it and we explain to them what it is,
that's what we say in the book, The Power of Simplicity, too. Now, David, we are going to the end of the program because we're running out of time. And I would like to ask you for an advice to the Colombian marketers before you go to Colombia.
I really encourage them to look at their companies, to look at what is a core value of what they're about, and to find a way to make a message about their values that will touch their consumers a part of their marketing. It doesn't have to be the leading edge, but it is, we have found, and research is showing all around the world, that keep people, especially in this era where they have access to information through the internet and social media, they're really keeping an eye on how people conduct themselves, how companies conduct themselves. It's an excellent time to start planting the seeds to show that you're a company that cares and to do it in a way that's going to help you build your business, build your relationship with your consumer, build your relationship with the folks who sell your goods and with the people who work there. Many of the people that I've interviewed in writing good works found that in addition to being an effective approach, they found that this chapter of their professional lives was among the most satisfying that they've had. We all would like our tombstone to read that we left the world a better place than when we started. This is a way of helping make that happen through your work.
David, too sad. Time is up and we have to say goodbye. But I really hope to have you in Colombia pretty soon. And for what we have done today and 1 week ago, I thank you very much.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Y a ustedes, muchísimas gracias por estar con nosotros. Muchas gracias y una feliz noche. Or if I may call it issues. The second one, what that? The corporate. Okay, why don't we go ahead?
So we've talked about marketing initiatives.
Yes.
Now we're going to talk about corporate initiatives.
Corporate initiatives.
And these are goals that a corporation has that certainly are about their business, about the health of their business, but are not as closely tied to the sale of their products and services. And we talk about 3 different types of these initiatives. One is traditional corporate philanthropy, where many companies have a foundation or another mechanism in which they give to the communities that they serve or to issues of concern to them.
And that's what we find most often.
That is exactly right. And that is an area. So in the case of this Share the Love program, they allowed consumers to choose from a selection of nonprofits to make a donation, to have Subaru give a donation. Anybody who bought a car during this 1 month period, Subaru would give $250 to the cause of their choice. And when they did the analysis, year after year, they have found that consumers are really excited about the program, that the dealers are really excited about the program, and that they are getting a higher price for the car than they would have at other times of the year when they're doing promotions. So it is a great example of how, done well, it can help you with your pricing. It can help you maintain good margins.
Okay, I think that with that example, we finished the first part, which is the first three issues.
Area that has been undergoing tremendous change. Last week, I joked a little bit and talked about some of the inappropriate ways in which money is given out. Sometimes a company may be in the food business, but a chief executive or a top executive has a particular passion for marine life.
Yes.
And suddenly this company is giving philanthropic donations to something that has nothing to do with their business. As companies have come under...
And that could be for tax purposes instead of social causes or cost marketing.
Yes, it could be for a variety of motivations, but it is definitely not tied to the core needs of the company.
Yeah.
As companies have come under greater scrutiny over the years, their giving practices have...
Muy buenas noches y bienvenidos nuevamente a la serie internacional de Tiempo de Mercadeo. La semana pasada con David Ezequiel dejamos una pregunta en el aire. Vamos a continuar en esta oportunidad con la respuesta que nos tiene él a ese interrogante. Ya volvemos. David, good evening and welcome back.
Great to be here.
Last week you were driving a Subaru.
Well, I'm a big fan of Subaru because, again, they're just so smart in the way they approach making cause marketing a real big part of how they go to market. And the example that I was about to share when we ran out of time is that for the last 5 or so years, they have had a program called Share the Love. At the end of the year in the United States, it's very common for car manufacturers to offer big sales. They want to clear out the end of the year models.
All in the inventory.
Exactly. And it's a big time where they end up spending a lot of money by giving away sale prices, by lowering their prices. And all car marketers measure how they're doing by how many cars they sell and at what prices they get. And if you are running an effective marketing program on top of your pricing program, the goal is that you will lower the amount of money you're giving back to the consumer, that you're getting a higher price for the car.